Hello, how we doing? My name is Ryan Mossor. That is one of my best friends and co-host David Kahoun.
Hey,
This
everyone.
is the this is the Commissioner Couch podcast. Come on in, take a seat, and let's talk some fantasy football. You can follow us on at the Commish Couch on Twitter. Also, we are sponsored by Inside Edge Network, LVP Production, and MossorMomentsPhotography.com. MOSSOR Moments Photography.com. They're a husband and wife Cleveland based wedding photography team. Check out their website. How you doing, Dave?
I'm good, man. It's been a long week for me personally, but I'm doing well.
Yeah,
How are you?
doing okay, man. Yeah, I'm sorry. Sorry about your unfortunate news. So
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it. But yeah, spending a lot of time with family lately, and it's been good. So
that's good. That's good. Yeah, at least you guys get to be together. So
yeah,
all right, you want to talk some fantasy football? Get into
I
this.
would love to talk about fantasy football.
All right. So this week, the bye teams, the Colts and the Saints. So clearly, don't start those players.
Please
Um,
don't.
there are a ton of injuries, man. This week, it's every week. It's just the year of injuries, as I say every week.
Hmm.
Let's just go through them real quick. Once again, disclaimer: today it's Wednesday. We try to get this out before the Thursday night football game, so that means some of these injuries may still be there. There might be some more, coming later in the week. But this is Wednesday, so the injuries today. Try to go through it quick. Joe Burrow, turf toe, is now practicing, so that's good. So he's looks to come back around Thanksgiving, which is huge. Khalil Herbert, groin, full participant practice. Garrett Wilson, knee out for 3 to 4 weeks. Kayshawn Booty, hamstring limited. Travion Henderson is a full participant in practice compared to Ramondre Stevenson, who has an injured toe and has not practiced. Treylon Burks, finger did not practice. Jaden Daniels, likely out. Zach Ertz did not practice. Terry McLaurin, out. Chris Rodriguez did not practice. Ollie Gordon limited. Chris Godwin limited. Bucky Irving is now practicing. He is limited. Please, God, let Bucky Irving play. It's just has killed me in fantasy. Dalton Kincaid did not practice. Khalil Shakur limited. Romeo Dobbs is now a full participant, so that's good. Matthew Golden is limited. Jackson Dart, concussion, has not practiced. Darius Slayton did not practice. Cole Kmet's limited. DJ Moore did not practice. Roman Dunze did not practice. Aaron Jones and JJ McCarthy are limited. Joe Flacco, Jonnu Smith, Keenan Allen did not practice this week. All three of them. Aradi Gaskin was a full participant in practice, so that's really good news. Quentin Johnson was limited, so was Lad McConkey. Excuse me there. So is Lad McConkey. Brenton Strange is set to come back from IR. He's the Jaguars tight end, so he was also limited in practice. Brian Thomas Jr. limited. Parker Washington did not practice. Travis Hunter's on IR. Dalton Schultz, C.J. Stroud, both of them did not participate in practice. Davis Mills was a full participant, so C.J. is out. Davis will obviously be the guy there. Ridley limited. Calvin Ridley, Rico Dowdle did not practice. Drake London did not practice. CMC did not practice. Mac Jones was a full participant. Brock Purdy's been limited. So has Ricky Pearsall has been limited. Marvin Harrison Jr. is out. He had appendicitis, so he had to get that fixed. AJ Barner, full participant. Jackson Smith and Jigba, limited. Devontae Adams and Rashad Bateman did not practice. Lamar Jackson has not practiced, but is expected to participate in practice tomorrow, so that's good news. Harold Fannin Jr. and David Njoku and Cedric Tillman all limited. Isaiah Pacheco did not practice. J.K. Dobbins and Sam Laporta did not participate in practice. So those are all the injuries today on Wednesday, the 12th.
Crazy.
Yeah, lots of guys, man. It's not fun. Let's go into our first segment, which is titled Hunks and Skunks. David's baby here.
Skunks.
Hunks and Skunks. Do you want to go over your last week hunks first?
Yeah. So last week I had 4 hunks, and they were Caleb Williams, Brock Bowers, Drake London, and Jacoby Brissett as an honorable mention. I would say 2 of those were pretty good hunks.
Sure.
Drake London has been on a tear lately and has been looking good. Caleb Williams, I think, has still been on the ascension and looking really good, so that's exciting. And Brock Bowers, I still think he will bounce back. He had an explosive comeback after his injury, but then kind of came back down to earth, and I think he'll bounce back next week. But yeah, Jacoby Brissett still looks to be the starter moving forward, so that's also good.
That was good. My last 3 hunks, I had 2. I had James Cook, 13 carries, 53 yards, 5 catches, 24 yards, and a fumble loss. He just had a bad game, which is crazy because he is the RB1, 10.7 fantasy points. And then Amon-Ra St. Brown, 5 catches, 58 yards, and a touchdown. That touchdown saved him, 16.8 fantasy points. Not bad. So this week, I'll go over my first hunk. For week 11, my first hunk is Rashee Rice. Last week he was on bye. Week 9 versus the Bills, he had 4 catches for 80 yards, 18.6 fantasy points. This week they play the Broncos. I understand that the Broncos have a very good defense. They rank 6th overall in the NFL so far, allowing an average of 179.5 yards and only 8 passing touchdowns this year. And honestly, this isn't, the best matchup for a wide receiver. The Broncos have a good secondary and a top defensive player at cornerback in Patrick Surtain, but I don't really care. I absolutely love Rashee Rice in this Chiefs offense. In his last 3 games back from a suspension, he's been so good. 20 catches on 26 targets, 215 yards, 3 touchdowns, 4 carries for 18 yards. That's 10.75 yards per catch, 67.3 fantasy points in 3 games, averaging 22.4 fantasy points per game so far. I mean, he's clearly the top option on that team and is only going to get better as the year goes on. The Chiefs are coming off a bye week, so that gives the entire team an extra week to heal up and prepare for the Broncos. Rashee has been a wide receiver 5 in fantasy for the last 3 weeks and has been, he's been back, and he'll absolutely, I think, continue that this week. So Rashee Rice is my hunk for week 11.
Yeah, I love that pick. I think Rice is just going to continue to dominate, and he's going to keep the Chiefs in the playoffs hunt, I think. So
yeah,
it's a great pick. My first hunk that I've got is somebody that we should probably just talk about every week at this point, but Jonathan Taylor. He had an explosive game, probably one of the best all-time running back fantasy football games we've seen. Yeah. 32 rushing attempts for 244 yards, 3 touchdowns, and the little cherry on top, he caught 3 passes for 42 yards. So, yeah, just absolutely insane and crushing it all around for Jonathan Taylor. He is the RB1 on the season and honestly has a chance to break records.
Dude, it's crazy what he's doing.
It's insane.
Crazy.
It's actually insane. He's going into a bye week, so he's going to get some rest, which will be great for him and his knees. But I think once he comes back from that bye week, he's just going to continue to explode and do well. And so, yeah. Pretty excited about that. I think he's been the hunk of the whole season. So.
Clearly. Go ahead and do your second one.
Yeah, my second one is actually old man Devontae Adams. I know he's really not that old. He's probably younger than me, actually. But still, he's been in the league for a while. He, in the last 4 weeks, he has been the wide receiver 5, wide receiver 4, and the wide receiver 13. Yeah. He has been really just dominating and looking youthful again. He's finally found a consistent quarterback and a consistent play caller that will get him the ball. He's had a touchdown in the last 3 games that they've played in, and they had a bye week in there as well. And so he's just been, just doing well and on another level. So it's been exciting to see him do that. The big thing moving forward is, can he keep up the consistency? His snap count has started to dip a little bit since returning from the bye, and I know that he's been battling with a little bit of injury. But if he plays, you got to start him at this point because he's just catching touchdowns and just being a good red zone threat for Matthew Stafford now. So
yeah, he's been surprising. I mean, I thought he was going to be good, but I didn't think he was going to be this good. So
same, yeah.
It's a good pick. Yeah. All right, my second hunk for the week is running back Devin Achane for the Miami Dolphins. Last week versus the Bills, absolutely dominated. 22 times ran the ball for 174 yards, 2 touchdowns. Caught the ball 6 times for 51 yards, 43.50 fantasy points. Just absolutely insane. This week they play the Washington Commanders. The Commanders are ranked 23rd in the NFL so far in rushing defense, allowing almost 140 rushing yards per game. Achane's been clearly a hunk for the entire year. He's ranked the 3rd best running back so far this year in Sleeper. He's ran the ball 143 times for 780 yards and 5 touchdowns, and then catches the ball, 49 times for 325 yards and another 4 touchdowns, 213.5 fantasy points so far this season. I mean, he's one of the only bright spots on that Dolphins team. This Commanders team is just almost as bad as the Dolphins, and they're riddled with injuries. Achane, I think, is going to feast again this week. He's definitely a hunk for week 11.
Yeah, I agree. I think a chain's going to be a huge focal point for that offense moving forward.
I say his name different every single time I say it too.
A chain, I don't know how to.
Whatever. It doesn't matter. He's still a Bisa.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah. So my skunks for this week. I have two running backs who are both running back ones now on the teams that they're on.
Okay.
But it's weird to me because I think football wise, I think they're good running backs. Fantasy wise, they are like the worst types of running backs to have. They are just like these lukewarm running backs that just don't get you any sort of good point values, but they're still kind of explosive and have good yards per rushing attempt. And so they're I want to start them, but I really shouldn't. That would be Tyrone Tracy and Jalen Warren.
Man.
Yeah, it's really funny, though, because they had literally identical stats. 14 carries for 71 yards for Tyrone Tracy, 14 carries for 70 yards for Jalen Warren. They're just the type of backs that seem the coaches want. Okay, you go run, get me 4 yards, and when we get close to the goal line, we're going to put somebody else in to get the touchdown. So you can get the yardage, that's it. And it's so infuriating as a fantasy football player because those touchdowns are so valuable. And so, yeah, those are my skunks that I have right now. I hate those types of lukewarm players where it's hey, I want to play them. They do well when they run the ball, but they're really not getting that many carries and they're really not getting any goal line work. So
yeah,
hate it.
No, that's a good one. Yeah, I don't know. I like Tyrone Tracy. Yes, I liked him coming out of Purdue. I mean, he was obviously a three-year receiver, then switched to running back his senior year, got drafted as running back. He just – I don't know, man. I don't know if they trust him because he has struggles with fumbles or what, but he's just been very, very underwhelming so far. And then obviously Cam Scadaboo would look to just steal that job and take it away. But now Tracy's back in the fold. So
yeah, we'll see how it progresses, and with the firing of Coach Dayball, we'll see what that offense looks like. He could just explode, and I think he's worth holding on to on your bench. But I would just stay away from starting either of those guys right now.
Yeah, I hear you. All right, my first skunk for this week, Rachaad White, the running back for the Buccaneers. Last week against the Patriots, 10 rushes for 38 yards, 5 catches for 16 yards, 10.4 fantasy points. I mean, the last 3 games he's played, he's had 8.4 fantasy points versus the Lions, 8.10 against the Saints, and then 10.4 against the Patriots. I mean, he's been very, very underwhelming this year. He's ranked the 25th best running back as the starter for the Buccaneers. Ran the ball 82 times for 325 yards, 4 touchdowns, 26 catches for 133 yards, and 95 fantasy points. Just very subpar this year. And I mean, and he's starting in 62% of leagues on Sleeper, which just doesn't make too much sense to me. Not to mention Bucky Irving is getting healthier day by day. He's limited in practice day. Yes, there's walkthroughs, but the fact that he's out there practicing is awesome. So I don't know. Rachaad White, I don't really like him too much. I think that Sean Tucker is going to get more and more looks. He's a skunk for me. So
yeah, no, I agree. I think it was interesting because I feel like when Bucky Irving went down, Rachaad White kind of exploded on the scene, and then I think team defenses have kind of caught on to oh, hey, this is how they use him, and now we're going to stop that. So it's been interesting to see how he's just kind of fallen off a cliff the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, he's just very, very inefficient too. He's always been an inefficient back, and that just doesn't work well. So my second skunk for this week is TJ Hawkinson, the tight end from the Vikings. Last week versus the Ravens, 2 catches, 8 yards, 2.8 fantasy points. This week, the Vikings do play the Chicago Bears. The Bears are 7th worst in passing defense in the NFL, allowing 240 yards per game and 20 passing touchdowns this season. They've also allowed 32 catches for 436 yards and 3 touchdowns to tight ends this year. So there should be plenty of opportunity for Hawkinson to put up some good numbers this week, but honestly, I don't think that really matters. I mean, Hawkinson looked to be a top 5 tight end in the NFL before he tore his ACL. He came back, healthy this season from that injury and was expected to pick up where he left off, but unfortunately, that hasn't happened. For at least the first half of this season, whether it's because of the injury that has affected him, or he'll just never be the same player again. Or maybe their quarterback woes. I don't know. I don't think it matters. He's the 23rd ranked tight end so far this season. 31 catches, 241 yards, 2 touchdowns. JJ McCarthy's been really terrible too. He has more interceptions than touchdowns this year. Hawkinson's competing with Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. I don't think he's a very viable tight end. And it's unfortunate because he, at one point was, coveted as one of the best for at least a year or two. So, but for right now, TJ Hawkinson is my second week 11 skunk. So.
Yeah, I like that pick a lot. It seems like that offense is really focusing on just feeding Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, and it's almost like they're telling JJ McCarthy, don't even look anywhere else. Just throw to these two guys. Or
the defense. Yeah.
Or the defense. Yeah. But yeah, I do think JJ McCarthy will get it turned around a little bit. I think he's got the skill there, but we'll see.
I think he sucks.
You're also a little biased there.
I'm not biased. Who cares if I'm a Buckeye fan? All right, real quick. Last week's skunks, I had Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt. He had 11 rushes for 30 yards, 3 fantasy points. That was an absolute skunk, dude. Skunky, bro. Then I also had George Kittle. But he actually had a good game. 9 catches for 84 yards and a touchdown, 23.4 fantasy points. So maybe he is back finally. So that's some good news. So
yeah. Last week I had Deebo Samuel, who's just been on a decline, it seems like. Tet McMillan, who had 5 catches for 60 yards. Very meh. And Zonovan Knight, and he's just been nobody. So, yes.
Yep. All right, going into our next segment. Our next segment is called Fantasy Fireworks. So, basically, this is just we each pick a game that we think can produce a ton of points. Would you like to go first, or you want me to go first?
You go first this time. I want to hear what you got.
All right. Well, I'll talk about last week first. Last week, I picked the Eagles versus the Packers for Monday Night Football. It was not a very good game, honestly. Eagles players did okay, I guess. Hurts had 12 points. Saquon had 13. Devontae Smith had 16. A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown's a story right now that we should talk about, but maybe.
For sure, yes.
I mean, 2 catches, 13 yards, not very good. Packers, Jordan Love only 7 fantasy points. Josh Jacobs had a good night, almost 20 points, but other than that, nobody else did well. It was just a very, very bad game. So that was definitely not a firework. So, you'll have that, but I did like the matchup. But this week, I really like the matchup. So my week 11 fantasy firework is the Seahawks versus the Rams.
Dog.
Is that what you picked?
That's what I picked.
Oh, nice.
Right, I had a backup plan in case this happened.
It's cool. It doesn't matter. I mean, that just means that, hey, we're both probably right. Seahawks offense is ranked 9th, averaging 360 total yards per game, 32 total touchdowns. I mean, JSN looks absolutely amazing. Their defense is 9th best as well, so top 10 offense and defense. Sam Darnold's the 13th ranked quarterback. Just looks like he's completely revitalized his career. Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet, both are okay. Top 35 running backs, but that'll happen when you share the backfield. JSN is the top receiver overall. Rashid Shaheed's 30th overall. Then AJ Barner's the 19th overall. Rams, almost just as good, if not better. 5th ranked total offense, and then 11th best defense. Matthew Stafford looks absolutely amazing for a grandfather out there. 7th overall quarterback. Kyron Williams, 9th overall running back. Puka Nacua, even though he's missed a ton of time, still the 4th overall receiver. Devontae Adams, like David talked about earlier, 7th overall receiver. And then Aranda Gadsden, who I think is just on the up and up, 16th overall tight end. He'll be top 10 here pretty soon. I'm pretty sure of it. Oh, yeah. I think this game is filled with absolute studs. The Rams look like their offense is probably one of the best in the NFL, and then that Darnold to JSN connection is something special for sure. So I just think there'll be a lot of fireworks this game, absolutely for sure.
Yep, I love that pick for all the same reasons that you said. I feel like both of those defenses too are like good enough defenses where the game will be close, but sure. Risky enough to where there will be some explosive plays from both sides of the offense. So I like that matchup a lot. So last week I picked the Patriots at the Buccaneers, and that was a great scoring game, 28-23. We saw the coming of fruition of Travion Henderson, who had 14 carries for 147 yards and 2 touchdowns. So
save me in my guillotine league. Let's go, Travion. Thank you, buddy.
Yeah, so it was good to see him burst onto the scene. That was very encouraging to see. I know a lot of fantasy football players and managers have been waiting for that. So finally vindicated for that one. But yeah, we also had a lot of other good players play well. Mika Ibuka played well. Drake May played really well. I think Stephon Diggs caught a touchdown as well. So there was a lot of good fireworks in that game. My original pick was the same one as you, Mossor, the Seahawks at the Rams. But my backup one was actually, are you ready for this?
Sure, man.
All right. It is the Chargers at the Jaguars.
Interesting.
Very interesting, right? But I do think, as we saw last week, the Jaguars can put up points, but their defense is just kind of Swiss cheese right now, especially late in the game. And we saw
they have
that.
Greg Newsome in the secondary. So
Hey, I'm not trying to take shots at anybody.
I am. He sucks.
He's a nice guy. I liked him when he was here. But yeah, I do think that team doesn't know how to finish games, and they let a Davis Mills Houston Texans team come back and win. So yeah, I'm not a fan of that defense, especially late in the game. I think the offense will get to an early lead, but then I think the Chargers could definitely come back and score a lot of points and win that game. And so I think there could be a lot of explosive plays. Parker Washington, for example, on the Jaguars is somebody who's really exploded onto the scene last 2-3 weeks. Somebody's catching a lot of touchdowns. It looks like they're trying to get BTJ back to himself, which is encouraging to see. So yeah, that was my backup plan, the Chargers at the Jags. So
nice. That's a good pick.
Go Chargers.
Yeah, I just remember a couple weeks ago when I was attempting to pick up Parker Washington, and you said, "No worries, I have no intention of picking up any Jaguars players." And so I'm glad that Washington's been doing relatively well. So
yeah, he has been.
All right, that was the fantasy fireworks. We're going to go into our next segment, which is called the long shot lineup. So these are just players, not necessarily sleepers, not the top guys, but these are guys who we think, are, run of the mill, but will score well this week. We'll do a quarterback, a running back, 2 receivers, a tight end, and a flex. David, I'll let you go with your quarterback first.
All right, my quarterback. Do we want to recap what we did last week?
Yeah, that's cool. Let's do that.
All right. So last week I had J.J. McCarthy as my quarterback. No good. I had Isaiah Davis as my running back. No good. Josh Downs as my wide receiver, ? I would say it was meh. Potential. And then I had Parker Washington as my wide receiver. That was a hit. David Njoku as my tight end, which was better than your tight end.
Listen, he caught a touchdown. He didn't do better. He just caught a touchdown.
Fantasy-wise, that's better.
Yes, but my reasons for starting Harold Fanny Jr. were still valid. He still gets more targets. But yes, touchdown aside, go ahead. Shut up.
And then my flex was Amari DiMercado, which was meh again. So this week for quarterback, I have the Joe Flacco experience down in Cincinnati. If he plays, I think that he's just somebody who has the weapons all around him, and if he's healthy and playing, which it seems like they're going to have him play, he's just going to force feed Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and just score a bunch of fantasy points. So I would definitely start him. They're playing the Pittsburgh Steelers, and so that's a big divisional game. I know that the Bengals want to stay in the hunt. They're trying to get Joe Burrow back by Thanksgiving. I think that they're going to win this game. I think they will. The Pittsburgh defense is really not that good. So, yeah, I think that Joe Flacco could really feast against that team.
Nice. It's a good pick. I like Flacco. It's unfortunate he couldn't do what he did or what he's doing in Cincinnati with the Browns, but I digress.
He doesn't have the weapons that he has.
Oh, yeah, and Kevin Stefanski is incompetent. So, nonetheless, my long shot lineup from last week, I'll go over that real quick. My quarterback was Sam Darnold. He did okay, but he only threw the ball 12 times. 7.42 fantasy points, not very good scoring wise. J.K. Dobbins was my running back, 9.4 fantasy points. Ladd McConkey was my first receiver, 4 catches, 104 yards, and a touchdown, 22.2 fantasy points. Christian Watson, 2 catches for 45 yards, 6.5 fantasy points. Harold Fannin Jr. had 4 catches for 44 yards, 8.4 fantasy points. And then I picked Kyron Williams as my flex, 14 rushes, 73 yards, 2 touchdowns, 22.4 fantasy points. You would have had 76.32 fantasy points if you started that team. So not the best one I've had, but definitely not the worst. So going into quarterback for week 11, my long shot lineup. Once again, the long shot lineup, these are sleepers, or not necessarily sleepers, but guys who aren't the top player at these positions. These are guys who we think at positions that will do well. So my quarterback is Dak Prescott. projected 19.85 fantasy points versus the Raiders. Week 9 versus the Cowboys. Last week they had week 9 versus the Cardinals. Last week they had a bye. He went 24 for 39 for 250 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 4 rushes for 34 yards, 16.4 fantasy points. Decent week. This week they play the Raiders. The Raiders are ranked 15th in the NFL after 10 weeks. They allow an average of 214 yards per game, 12 passing touchdowns so far. Dak and his offense have looked incredible this season, like really, really good. Ranked 4th in total offense in the NFL, and that's just because they didn't play last week because of the bye. 378.4 yards per game, 32 total touchdowns, absolutely dynamic. They also have the 3rd best passing offense in the NFL as well. Dak is the 10th ranked quarterback in sleeper right now. He's completed 228 of his 329 passes for 2,319 yards and 17 passing touchdowns, 6 interceptions. It looks absolutely great. 174.86 fantasy points so far. The Raiders are 2-7 and are a mess. I just think Dak's gonna just tear them up this week. So,
yeah, I agree with that pick. I think him having CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens back is just gonna feast. So, great pick.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, my running back that I had is a sneaky running back, somebody who the last few weeks has really pushed for more shares and more carries from the running back one on his team, and that would be Blake Corum for the Los Angeles Rams.
I hate Blake Corum.
Oh, I like Blake Corum. I think that he's somebody that could be a very sneaky good pick this week. As Mossor and I mentioned earlier, we both like that matchup for the Seattle Seahawks against the LA Rams. Kyren Williams has not really shown to be his explosive self from the years past, and so I think Blake Corum is really pushing to get more of those carries. And the last 3 weeks, I think he's had at least double-digit carries in each game, and so it's really becoming more of a split backfield. And I think if he can rally off some longer runs and get some touchdowns, he could be really fantasy relevant going into that game. And so I like him as a sneaky pick this week. He's also somebody who I think could be a good running back, just grab and stash for teams that are wanting to make a playoff push and make a run at a championship. Because if something does happen to Kyren Williams, he rolls an ankle or gets sick or whatever and misses a week or two, like Blake Corum could just feast and be very, very explosive. And so I like Blake Corum moving forward.
Yeah, I don't, but that's okay. I really like Kyren. Go into your first receiver as well.
Yeah, my first receiver that I have is none other than Trey Tucker. I feel like we've talked about him a few times on this podcast. He is somebody, I don't know. I feel like he is going to just become wide receiver 1 de facto on the Raiders team moving forward. He's just, by default, going to be the person that they throw to the ball besides Brock Bowers. And so I think that he could be somebody that just benefits from the lack of other talent around him. Could be somebody who could just make a big play down the field and get a lot of yards and then catch like a short touchdown pass on a slant and do well fantasy-wise, even though he only caught 3 passes the whole game. So definitely somebody to keep an eye on. I don't know if I'd start him just yet, but for the long shot lineup, I think I like him.
There you go. All right, my running back for the long shot lineup, Quinshon Judkins, projected 13.83 fantasy points against the Ravens. Last week against the Jets, ran the ball 22 times for 75 yards, 2 catches, 10 yards, 10.5 fantasy points. This week they play the Ravens, who are 20th overall in defense. They're really, really bad, filled with unfortunate injuries, but that's great for the Browns. And Quinshon's been pretty much the only bright spot in this Browns offense, or at least the most consistent spot. With Kevin Stefanski giving up play calling to the offensive coordinator Tommy Rees last week, Quinshon 22 carries, 75 yards. Hell, even Jerry Jeudy looked like a NFL wide receiver. A wide receiver 4, but whatever. Nonetheless, the Browns have the easiest schedule remaining out of any team in the NFL. That doesn't mean that I think they'll win those games, but it does mean that Quinshon fantasy owners will benefit from that. I expect Judkins to be the focal point of the offense for the rest of the year. I think they'll continue this week against the Ravens. Quinshon Judkins is definitely my long shot lineup running back for week 11. And then going into my wide receiver for my first one, Deebo Samuel projected 14.11 fantasy points against the Dolphins. Last week against the Lions, he had 4 catches, 29 yards, and a touchdown. The touchdown obviously saved the week for fantasy owners. 12.9 fantasy points. This week they play the Dolphins. Do I need to say more? No, but I will. I understand the Dolphins looked really good, versus the Bills, but I think that was an anomaly. Terry McLaurin is still out with the quad injury. Marcus Mariota's, still in a quarterback. Honestly, this Commanders offense has been a huge letdown so far this season. It's clearly due to the influx of injuries. Debo seems to be the only player that's been healthy and getting good opportunities. He hasn't really played well since week 5, as David alluded to earlier, but their schedule has been brutal also the last few weeks. But like I said, there's not many options left on that team. Between Debo, Ertz, Bill Krosky-Merritt, I'm going to bet on Debo. The Dolphins are giving up 207.2 yards per game and 17 passing touchdowns this year. Like I said, plenty of opportunity for Debo to have a good game. So that's why he is my first wide receiver in the long shot lineup.
Yeah, I don't mind that pick because he's literally the only weapon that's left in that whole team. Yeah. But I don't know if I trust it completely yet.
Sure. That's why it's a long shot.
Yeah, I like it. My second wide receiver that I have is a Packers wide receiver, somebody that has a big helmet, Romeo Doubs. He's just emerged as somebody that has become like that red zone target for that offense moving forward, especially now that they've lost Tucker Kraft. He seems to be somebody that's going to become a focal point for scoring touchdowns moving forward, and I think that this week could be a really good week for him. I had the team that they were going up against, and now I forgot. But I think that team is just going to rely on Romeo Doubs moving forward. They're also banged up at some other positions of wide receiver. Matthew Golden just looks like a complete wash. And so I think Romeo Doubs is going to become...
They play the Giants, by the way.
The Giants, yes. The team that just fired their coach. And so, yeah, I do think Romeo Doubs will become that wide receiver 1 moving down the stretch and be a good player here this week against the Giants.
That's a good pick. Real quick, shout out to Adriel Hidalgo, who said hi on YouTube. Thank you for the subscription. Appreciate you.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks, buddy. All right. So my second receiver in the long shot lineup is wide receiver Stephon Diggs for the Patriots. Projected 13.97 fantasy points versus the Jets last week versus the Buccaneers. 5 catches, 46 yards, a touchdown, 15.6 fantasy points. The Jets are ranked 8th in passing defense, giving up only 190.8 passing yards a game and 17 passing touchdowns. But that was mainly with Sauce Gardner on the team, and now he's playing for the Colts. That's great news for opposing wide receivers. I think this week is going to be great news for Stephon Diggs and company as well. For weeks now, it's been reported that the Patriots have been searching for a wide receiver 1, and they were looking for that at the trade deadline. But that has come in past, and no changes were made. So Stephon Diggs is the wide receiver 1 for Drake May. We talked about him earlier. May is the quarterback 1 on Sleeper right now. It's probably the front runner for NFL MVP, which is absolutely awesome. That's crazy to think about. That's a huge testament to Mike Vrabel also. The last 4 weeks, Stephon Diggs, 13.9 fantasy points versus the Titans, 10.4 versus the Browns, 12.8 versus the Falcons, and then last week he had 15.6 versus the Buccaneers. I'm definitely betting on Drake May and his wide receiver 1 this week. He is my second wide receiver for the long shot lineup for week 11.
Yeah, I like that pick a lot. I think Hunter Henry is somebody that definitely has emerged in that offense, but I do think Stephon Diggs, especially as of the last few weeks, has really emerged as a huge weapon for Drake May. So
yeah, and as long as that rushing game still continues to dominate, like TreVeyon Henderson has been doing the last couple of weeks and looks to progressively get better. He's been a full participant in practice too. So as long as they keep going in that direction with the running game, it's going to open up the passing game a ton. So
absolutely. Alrighty, tight end and flex. I'll get through these 2 pretty quickly. So my first tight end that I've got is Kyle Pitts. He has emerged as somebody that's
almost picked him.
He's been sneaky. He's been somebody that I don't completely trust because I've been burned in the past from him, but somebody who has emerged as a good weapon for Michael Penix. And so I think that offense needs to find somebody that's explosive outside of Drake London, and I think they're trying to make Kyle Pitts become that person. And so I do think he's going to demand more targets moving forward. I think he will become a good scoring option and red zone threat for that offense. And so, this week, pick him up, start him. It's a good long shot reach. I have him actually in one of my guillotine leagues, and so I think he could do really well and could be a team that's constantly playing from behind again. And so I think that he will just get a lot of targets and get a lot of catches and hopefully a touchdown. And then My last flex position I have is wide receiver Michael Wilson for the Cardinals. With, as you mentioned, Marv Harrison having the appendicitis earlier this week and being out for this upcoming week and maybe foreseeable future. I think Michael Carter is going to be a good player. Thank you, Michael Wilson. Wow. It's going to be a good wide receiver to have for Jacoby Brissett. He's going to find the open guy. He's not going to care who it is. He's not going to force feed anybody. And I think Michael Wilson could emerge as a good weapon for him this week. So
that's an interesting one. I don't mind him as a wide receiver 2 or 3. I'll be interested to see what he does as the focal point. I mean, obviously Trevor Pride's still the wide receiver 1.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
So, all right, I'll go through once again. This is the long shot lineup. This is my tight end, Cade Otton for the Buccaneers, projected 9.69 fantasy points versus the Bills. Last week versus the Patriots, 9 catches on 12 targets for 82 yards, 17.2 fantasy points. The Bills have a great pass defense so far this year, allowing only 170.2 passing yards per game and 9 touchdowns. Also, they're great. Honestly, they're the best team against the tight end this year, only allowing 23 catches for 242 yards and a touchdown. But that's only been on 33 targets. The bad news for Buffalo is that Otton is a reception monster from Baker Mayfield. Since week 6, Cade Otton has had 32 targets from Baker Mayfield. So Otton has had 1 less target in his last 4 games than the Bills have had faced all season. Otton was targeted 12 times last week. I love this dude. I think that he's only owned 39% in leagues on sleeper, so a lot of opportunity to pick him up still. I said a few weeks ago in the sleepers or creepers segment that you need to grab him and stash him. Go grab him. I mean, he's absorbing a ton of targets right now, man. You should absolutely grab him. I understand that the Bills have a good pass defense, but I think that Otton surprises them this week and puts up a lot of solid numbers. That's why Cade Otton is my week 11 long shot lineup tight end. So.
Yeah, I like that pick a lot. I think that he will be really good.
Yeah, I mean, it's undeniable when you're getting the ball thrown to you that much that you're going to continue, and hopefully, 1 or 2 of those might be a touchdown as well. He's looking really good. 12, like I said, 32 passes in the last 3 games he's played. So that's really, really good. Going into my flex for the long shot lineup, I'm going with Jalen Waddle, receiver for the Dolphins, projected 15.87 fantasy points versus the Commanders. Last week versus the Bills, 5 catches, 84 yards, and a touchdown. The Commanders are just a bad team right now. They have a terrible pass defense. They're ranked 31st in the NFL, allowing 260 yards and 22 passing touchdowns so far this year. I mentioned earlier, Devin Achane was pretty much the only good thing going for this Dolphins offense, but Waddle's had secretly a nice season as well. I mentioned it in the Week 4 episode when Tyreek Hill went down that I believe that Jalen Waddle was going to have a great bounce-back year. Lest we forget that Waddle was horrendous the last 2 years playing behind Tyreek. He ended 2024 season with as the wide receiver 46. Then 23, he was the wide receiver 34. That being after, being the wide receiver 13 his rookie year and wide receiver 8 the following year. It's obviously that the problem was having Tyreek Hill on that team and demanding the ball. Now Waddle's back to form, and he's back to form where he was the first 2 seasons without Tyreek. He's currently the wide receiver 11 right now in fantasy. Last 3 weeks, Waddle's put up 21.9 fantasy points versus the Falcons, 14.2 versus the Ravens, and then last week, 19.4 against the Bills. This week, they played the second worst passing defense in the NFL. I'm definitely betting on Jalen Waddle to have a really, really good week. I think he's going to feast, and that's why he's my flex option for the long shot lineup.
Yeah, I think that's a great pick, and I think that offense specifically is going to be trailing in a lot of games moving forward down the stretch, and so I think Jalen Waddle specifically will be a benefactor of that team just being bad. So, all right, our next segment we have is the legacy lineup. So this is like your daily fantasy sports. So just picking one player at each position just to help you figure out who are some good players to target this week. Last week,
real quick, this is not betting advice. This is just what we think, which player we think will probably do the best at each position. This is just for fun. Sorry.
Yep. No, you're good. Week 10, last week I had Josh Allen, Jonathan Taylor, Nico Collins, and Brock Bowers. I would say 2 of those people were hits, and Jonathan Taylor and Nico Collins. I thought Josh Allen was going to do really well going up against the Dolphins. And
yeah, what the heck, man?
Kind of laid a goose egg.
What a weird game.
A very weird game. And then Brock Bowers, I don't know what happened there either. He caught 2 passes for 30-something yards and then just was never targeted again. Come on, offensive coordinator. You got to be better than that. So, yeah, just very disappointed in both of those players. But this week, I have some, I think, a little bit deeper of picks for some players. So my first quarterback is going to be Justin Herbert. As I mentioned earlier, I like that matchup going against the Jaguars. I do think that team's going to give up a lot of good explosive plays to people, especially in the wide receiver core. So I expect Quentin Johnson to catch some deep passes, Ladd McConkey to do really well, and for what's the other old wide
Keenan
receiver?
Allen.
Keenan Allen, thank you, yes. So I think Justin Herbert's going to do really well and score a lot of points for that game. The running back that I picked is R.J. Harvey, the rookie running back for the Denver Broncos. It was reported today that J.K. Dobbins is not practicing. He is still unsure if they're going to put him and place him on IR because of his foot injury. And so that's just one to watch moving forward too. But I do think R.J. Harvey is going to benefit from that a lot. When he's had his chances, R.J. Harvey's looked really explosive, especially in the open field. Both the pass and the run game. And so I do think that there's going to be some really cool opportunities for him to become a bell cow back down the stretch and be somebody that could be really good. And I do think that this matchup this week against the, I have it here, Kansas City Chiefs could be a good matchup for him to kind of be have that explosive game.
Real quick. Who would you rather have, Juwan Jennings or RJ Harvey in a PPR league?
I would rather have RJ Harvey. I think he has already proven that he can be a weapon as a running back in the passing game. He's kind of been that all season, and so I think now that he's going to have more of the actual rushing carries, he's still going to get some of those passing targets to his way as well. And so I think that he could be really, really good as a check down person for Bo Nix, as well as being that bell cow back that moves forward. Juwan Jennings, I'd like, but I think that offense for the 49ers is just so beat up that when players start coming back and being healthy, I think that Jennings is just probably going to take a little bit of a backseat, especially if Ricky Pearsall comes back, if Brandon Ayuk comes back. I think that Juwan is just going to be, I don't know if Ayuk's ever going to come back.
I don't think he is, but yeah, I 100% agree. So that was a question from Gabe Owners who asked, who wins this trade? Juwan Jennings for RJ Harvey, full PPR. I fully agree with Dave. I would keep RJ Harvey. So if you were looking for a trade and you don't have RJ Harvey, I would absolutely send Juwan Jennings. So
yeah,
sorry, you were talking about him, and I saw that question, so might as well talk about it.
Yeah, I didn't even that one.
Oh, good. Go ahead with your receiver.
All right, my receiver that I have goes with my quarterback. That is Ladd McConkey. As I mentioned earlier, the Jaguars team, especially in the secondary, has given up some really explosive plays, and I do think that Ladd McConkey is going to be one of those players that benefits the most from that. He's kind of emerged as the check down safety net for Justin Herbert over the last few weeks and has really benefited from that fantasy-wise. And so I think this week, if he can get a touchdown or two to go with that, I think that he's just going to be really, really good to have on a fantasy team this week. And so I like his matchup. I like the secondary that he's going up against, and I like that Justin Herbert's kind of zoning in on him lately. So
nice. And then finish off with your tight end.
My tight end, we talked about him very, very briefly earlier, but Trey McBride. We mentioned that Marvin Harrison's out with appendicitis. I think that that's just going to mean Trey McBride is going to get all of the catches and targets that Jacoby Brissett can really throw at him. I think he'll probably catch 1 or 2 touchdowns this game. I think that he's just going to be the tight end one for the next week, 2, maybe 3 weeks. It'd be somebody that's just going to demand the ball. So I love his matchup. I love just the opportunity that's there for him, and I would be starting him in DFS leagues this week.
There you go. All right. Once again, this is the legacy lineup. These are players that we think will do well for DFS. This is not sports betting advice. This is just for fun. I will go over my last week players. We just do a quarterback, running back, receiver, tight end. My last week quarterback, Jackson Dart, 26.28 fantasy points. Relatively, I thought that was okay. Running back was Josh Jacobs, 19.7 fantasy points. My wide receiver was Drake London. He had 25.4 fantasy points. And then my tight end was Sam Laporta, 5 catches, 53 yards for 10.3 fantasy points. Pretty good lineup, I would say, overall. Going into this week, my quarterback, we talked about him earlier, Drake May. Drake May projected 21.1 fantasy points versus the Jets. I mentioned him earlier when I talked about Stephon Diggs, but I mean, what can I say? This dude's a stud. He's quarterback 1 in fantasy so far. He's completed 205 of 286 for 2,555 yards, 19 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. And then also he's a dual threat, 66 rushes for 283 yards, rushing and 2 rushing touchdowns. Absolute dominating quarterback right now. This week they play the Jets, who no longer have Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams. Drake May is going to continue his dominance this week with a great game against the Jets. He's my QB1 for the legacy lineup. I think he's going to do some special stuff this season. So,
absolutely. I love that pick.
Yeah, I appreciate you trading him to me in my
you're
dynasty
welcome.
league. So
you're welcome.
Thanks, buddy. Running back, I'm going for Christian McCaffrey. Projected 24.28 fantasy points versus the Cardinals. CMC, in my opinion, is the best fantasy asset this season. Obviously, it's between him and Jonathan Taylor, but I'm leaning towards CMC this week. CMC is the second-ranked fantasy running back this far. He's ran the ball 180 times for 626 yards and 4 touchdowns. But the value for me comes from his ability to catch the ball in the backfield. He's caught the ball 69 times for 692 yards and 4 receiving touchdowns. So he has more receiving yards than rushing yards, and he's got over 600 rushing yards. Really, he's a PPR stud. This guy's, an absolute stud. The 49ers play the Arizona Cardinals this week. Cardinals ranked 24th in the NFL. They allow almost 340 yards per game and 23 total touchdowns. Not to mention the starting the backup QB, Jacoby Brissett. They have a running back by committee of RB2s or 3s in the backfield. And Marvin Harrison Jr. is out this week due to appendicitis, as we talked about earlier. I do expect the Cardinals to go 3 and out a lot this week and will be playing their defense a lot just because they don't have a ton of people on their offense right now. That below average defense will get tired, and CMC is going to play very well. There's a ton of opportunities for him to wreck this team this week. I think Christian McCaffrey is going to play well. He's my week 11 legacy lineup running back. Going into my receiver, Nico Collins for the Texans projected 16.76 fantasy points versus the Titans this week. This is a no-brainer for me. Yes, it's true that Nico Collins has struggled a bit this year, but the entire Texans team has, honestly, and Nico has been dealing with a concussion as well. The last 2 weeks, Nico looked to be back to form. Week 9 versus Denver, 7 catches from 11 targets for 75 yards. Week 10 versus the Jaguars, 7 catches on 15 targets for 136 yards. 26 targets and 38.6 fantasy points the last 2 weeks. The Titans have allowed an average of 215 passing yards per game and 14 touchdowns this season in the air. They're a mess, and I'm not sure if it's going to get better for them anytime soon. Nico Collins, like I said, I think he's back to form, and I think he'll continue that this year. I think he's back, baby. And that's why he's my wide receiver for the legacy lineup week 11. Tight end, I doubt that David chose his Pookie this week, so I will. So I chose Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers had an incredible game back after his injury, 12 catches, 127 yards, and 3 touchdowns 2 weeks ago versus the Jaguars, 44.3 fantasy points. Everyone thought he was back, but the Raiders struggled to get him the ball last week and really just struggled in general. 1 catch for 31 yards, they only had 3.7 fantasy points. This week, the Raiders do play the Cowboys, and as I mentioned 1,000 times this year, the Cowboys defense is one of the worst in the NFL. They currently rank 29th, allowing 254 passing yards per game and 22 passing touchdowns. They also have allowed 54 catches for 500 yards and 3 touchdowns to tight ends this year. That's great news for Brock Bowers. That's a lot. I think it's like bottom 10 in the NFL right now to tight ends. Brock Bowers should have a bounce back stellar week against a very bad Cowboys defense. So he is my legacy lineup tight end week 11.
I love that I picked your Pookie and you picked my Pookie.
He's not my Pookie. He's just a very good player.
Trey McBride is definitely your tight end Pookie.
No, Tyler Warren is my tight end Pookie.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
It is what it is. All right, we're going to go into our last segment here. It's called Sleepers and Creepers. I will let you go first with your last week's Sleepers, David.
Yeah, so last week I had for my sleepers, I had Colston Loveland, tight end for the Chicago Bears. Looks to just be cruising along here, going on all cylinders, so I like that. And then another Bears player, I had Olamide Zacchaeus. I'm not too confident that was a good pick, but a sleeper nonetheless. I think Roma Dunze is going to just be back to himself moving forward, so I'm not too sure Zacchaeus is going to get a lot of those target shares anymore. But maybe hold on to him and just see how this next week goes.
Sure.
My new ones for this week, I have Sean Tucker. Talked about him a little bit, running back for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's really just forcing the coaches to play him. He has just looked so much more efficient and explosive than Rachaad White has, and so I think he's going to demand to play even if Bucky Irving comes back. So I think that he's kind of taken over Rachaad White for that running back spot on that team, which is encouraging to see. And then I have Parker Washington again. We've talked about him a little bit in here, and I was waiting for him to just kind of prove it like, hey, can you do what you did 2 weeks ago another time? And then he did. And so I think for fantasy-wise, that's encouraging to see. I would love to see him just keep continuing to be that explosive playmaker for that offense. Even though they continue to lose games. That's what I want to see. But yeah, he's somebody who I think is going to be really good down the stretch and be a good player for a lot of good fantasy teams that want to win championships. He might be a league winner, so I like him. And then another person who I think could be a sneaky league winner this season to wrap things up would be Jerry Jeudy. We talked about him a little bit, and I think not because of who's currently the quarterback on the Browns, but because of who will eventually come to play at quarterback for the Browns, could make Jerry Jeudy a very, very sneaky league winner as the season goes on.
Who are you inferring to?
I'm inferring to Shedeur Sanders, obviously. Shedeur Sanders.
What about Deshaun Watson, Bailey Zappi?
Yeah, no, I don't. I honestly doubt Deshaun Watson sees the field at all this year, and Bailey Zappi, I don't think he will either. But yeah, Jerry Jeudy, we saw him finally come back to life this past week. Caught a touchdown pass, had I think close to 100 yards, and so finally looking a little bit more like the explosive player we saw last season when Jameis Winston got into the game. And so I think maybe not this week, maybe not the week after that. But eventually, we're going to see Shedeur Sanders. And I am a huge believer in him. I believe that he is going to be somebody that is just going to lift everybody up around him on the offense, going to be somebody that rallies the team. He's just kind of got that charismatic leadership that you just really can't coach and can't teach. And so I think that somebody like Jerry Jeudy is going to be a huge benefactor of that. He's proven that he can be explosive when he has a gunslinger in the game with him. Look at the Broncos game last season when Jameis Winston was in the game. I think that playmaking ability is still there, and if you can catch lightning in the bottle with Shedeur Sanders, I think Jerry Jeudy could be really, really explosive. And so it's maybe a little bit of a sneaky pick, but I like it as a sleeper. And so, yeah, he was available in a couple of my leagues, so I just went and picked him up, and I encourage you to do the same.
I think I'd rather jump in front of a bus than have Jerry Jeudy on my team.
Fair. He has also the most drops in the league, so I get that, which is why it's a sleeper pick. Not a all-star pick,
I guess. All right. Last week's sleepers for me, I had Luke Musgrave, the tight end for the Packers. Last week, 3 catches, 23 yards, 5.3 fantasy points. He was rostered 25% of leagues last week. Now he's rostered 30%, so a small bump there. I do like the opportunities, but it looks like right now he's just a role player. It doesn't look like he's going to take over the workload from Tucker Kraft. I'm unsure who is going to be that guy at this point. I thought it was going to be Christian Watson, but it looks like he's not as well. He only had 2 catches as well. So my second guy sleeper last week was Devon Vele, receiver for the Saints. I still like the opportunities, like I said, but this Saints team is a mess. 1 catch, 15 yards, 2.5 fantasy points. Was rostered 3% of teams, and he's still rostered 3% of teams. It's basically an overlooked player right now. Super, super deep sleeper, though. This week's sleepers, I have a wide receiver for the Raiders who I think is going to take over as the wide receiver 1. Tyler Lockett, not Trey Tucker.
The wrong T.
Yeah, it's not Trey Tucker. Tyler Lockett. 47% rostered on sleeper. I mean, Tyler Lockett was a part of the Titans and asked to be cut, and his wish was granted. He was irrelevant with Tennessee, so nobody blinked an eye. Some even thought that maybe he would decide to retire after that, but then it was reported that he signed with the Raiders, and the Raiders decided to trade away their wide receiver one, like David said earlier, and Jacoby Myers at the trade deadline, and then boom. All of a sudden, Tyler Lockett has exploded. Last week versus the Broncos was his first real game with the team. He ended up leading the Raiders in targets and receptions. His stats weren't earth-shattering, but they weren't awful. 5 catches, 6 targets for 44 yards. It's important that to know that Tyler Lockett, not Rocket. That'd be a cool nickname, though.
I like Tyler Lockett, though.
Tyler Lockett has a fantastic relationship with Raiders head coach Pete Carroll, as they spent a very large time together in Seattle. There's not a true wide receiver one for that team. They have Trey Tucker, who has had a good start, has been struggling as of late. Yes, Brock Bowers is there and can be dynamic, but we'll obviously want to get a wide receiver involved. Call me crazy, but I think the 31-year-old Tyler Lockett could be a major pickup this late in the season. Odds are he's probably available in your league. Like I said, only 47% owned right now in leagues on Sleeper, but I think that you should consider picking him up. Tyler Lockett is my first sleeper because I think he's going to get the majority of the targets instead of Trey Tucker. Going on to my second sleeper, wide receiver for the Jets, A.D. Mitchell. Owned 74% in leagues in sleeper. Listen, A.D. Mitchell has had a strange career thus far. He had a weird NFL draft profile. He's one of those guys that are incredibly athletic, but really doesn't have amazing hands. His time at the Colts was unproductive as well when given opportunities. He made boneheaded plays. For example, fumbling as he crosses the goal line before he scores the touchdown and ends up turning the ball over. He eventually got buried on that Colts depth chart and was an active scratch for a lot of games. But he's no longer with the Colts. He was involved with the trade that sent Sauce Gardner to Indy, and now he's with the Jets. And now his path to being on the field has opened up tremendously. So much so that he may be the wide receiver one this week, which is expected to be his first game on the field with his new team. It was reported that Garrett Wilson will be sidelined 3 to 4 weeks with a knee injury. I'm not sure if he's going to be a stud, but for sure he's going to get a buttload of targets as basically the only option there now. And only 74% owned on Sleeper. He may be a decent stash. A.D. Mitchell's my second sleeper for week 11.
Yeah, I like that pick a lot. I think he definitely needed a new home, and I think the Jets needed a new wide receiver. The talent's there. We'll see if the opportunity is.
It's going to make some smart decisions. So.
Yep.
All right, go on to the creepers.
Creepers. So last week I had J.K. Dobbins and Kyler Murray as my creepers. I wasn't trying to predict that J.K. Dobbins would get hurt, but he did, and he's probably going to be placed on IR now. So kind of worked out as I said it would. This week I have Isaiah Davis as a creeper. It was somebody that I was actually really excited about because I thought, Breece Hall, he's not going to do anything. He's kind of given up on this team. He wants out, yada, yada, yada. No, Breece Hall actually played really well against the Browns and scored a touchdown. And, the only functional part of that offense. So, big no-no there. So, he's now a creeper for me. The other creeper that I have is actually another Jets player. That is Garrett Wilson. Somebody who I think is immensely talented. Oh, I know he's hurt, but
you can't. Still, that's dumb.
The Jets team didn't want to pass the ball at all last week. Like, Justin Fields only had 11 attempts, and one of them was for a pick. So, I don't think Garrett Wilson is the issue here. I think that offense not wanting to pass the ball is the issue. So, even if he's healthy, they just might not throw the ball at all in any game. And so that's where I think the issue is not so much Garrett Wilson or his availability or him.
So why choose Garrett Wilson and why not choose Justin Fields then?
Because I think Garrett Wilson is somebody that's going to be the person that.
He's out 3 to 4 weeks, of course.
Sure, yes, but I still think everybody in that offense besides Breece Hall is pretty much like a creeper at this point.
I disagree. That's my original Pookie. You better watch it.
I know he is, but I just don't love where that's at.
He should have got traded. Jets are stupid.
He should have, yes. Him and Brees Hall, really. But come next year, when they have a better quarterback and they feel more comfortable in that offense, I think he will do really well. But for now, I am staying away from Garrett Wilson.
Hold on. Fernando Mendoza is coming, Garrett. Hold on.
Maybe.
All right. I'll go over. This is our last segment. I'll go over my last week creepers real quick. I was a week ahead of David. I had Isaiah Davis as my running back last week for a creeper. Was 79% owned on sleeper last week. Now he's 27% owned, so a major drop. I mean, like I said last week, he was only going to be valuable if Brees Hall was traded, and that didn't happen. So now his value will only go up if Brees gets injured. You can drop him; he is irrelevant at this point. And then I had Chimere Dyke, the wide receiver for the Titans, was 85% owned on sleeper, and now he's 32% owned, and they were on a bye last week. Dyke may have a good career with the Titans, but as of now, his value is only with he's only valuable on your fantasy team if you allow special team scoring. He's really good at kick returning and punt returning, but not very serviceable as a receiver at this point. He's just not getting the volume, so I would steer clear of him. This week, my first creeper for week 11 is Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. I feel like this is the third time in 4 weeks that I've made him a creeper, but I mean, time and time again, it's proving that he deserves it. Basically, the loss of Jaden Daniels and Terry McLaurin has completely, disintegrated any chances for Bill Krosky-Merritt to play well. It's unfortunate because I do like him as a prospect a lot, but the proof's in the pudding. Since week 6, Bill has been so bad for fantasy owners. His fantasy numbers, week 6 are 5.8 versus the Bears, 4.2 versus the Cowboys, 2.5 versus the Chiefs, 5.10 versus the Seahawks, and then last week versus the Lions, he had 3 fantasy points. I mean, we can't even start at this point. He's not even worthy really of a bench spot. It's awful, terrible numbers the last 5 weeks, and I'm not sure if it's going to get better. I do like the player, but he cannot be trusted. And 78% of you own him, and 31% of you are starting him. Stop it. Stop starting him. He's scoring. I mean, in the last 5 weeks, the highest he's scored is 5.8 points, guys. Like, that's not going to win you anything. You got to get this dude out of your starting lineup. He's a creeper. So,
yeah.
And then my second creeper is Justin Fields, quarterback for the Jets. Owned 42% of teams on sleeper. He's been a total disappointment this year for Jets fans and fantasy owners alike. The Jets team is the worst team in the NFL. I mean, just kidding. They beat the Browns. So, we don't know who is the worst team in the NFL. It's probably the Browns. I'm a Browns fan. I hate my life. But Justin Fields is not really rosterable at this point. I mean, the Jets are alluding to the fact that, they are basically refusing to announce the starting quarterback and are toying with the idea that they may go Tyrod Taylor at any point. They just, who are we going to start? We don't know. Justin Fields has not been good this year. Really, has he been good in his career? We don't know. He's just been very hopeful prospect at this point. I mean, even last week versus the Browns, who, somehow they beat the Browns. He only went 6 of 11 for 54 yards and a touchdown and interception. 7 rushes for 28 yards, 8.96 fantasy points. How the hell do you win a game with going 6 from 11 for 54 yards? Oh, it's because, the Browns special team sucks and they scored back-to-back touchdowns off of a kickoff and then a punt. Whatever. Drop this bum. Justin Fields is not good. If you can't, you may be cooked. If he's your quarterback at this point, you are definitely cooked because he's bad. He's a creeper. So,
agreed all around. I think Bill is one of the bigger disappointments that I've had this year for fantasy football. And
yeah.
I'm hopeful because I have him in my dynasty league. I'm hopeful that next year he will look better. But yeah, I think all those injuries just kind of caught up to that whole offense, and now everything's just not working. So,
yeah. All right. Once again, my name is Ryan Mossor. That is one of my best friends and co-host, David Kahoun. I think we're done. That's everything I got, buddy. This is the Commissioner's Couch podcast. Thanks for coming in and taking a seat with us tonight for the Week 11 fantasy football season. Once again, we are sponsored by Inside Edge Network, LVP Productions, and Mossor Moments Photography. MossorMomentsPhotography.com, MOSSOR MomentsPhotography.com. They're a husband and wife Cleveland-based photography team. Again, there are 244 of you guys live here tonight. I just wanted to say, we're so grateful for all of you. Thank you for tuning in every week. Every single week we just have a very loyal group of people that watch us, and we're very, very grateful for that. Please go follow us on Twitter at the Commish Couch. We're also on Facebook and YouTube. Please go subscribe to us. We will be live next Wednesday at 9 p.m. For week 12. We will see you then. Thank you guys so much, and have a good night.
Yeah, have a good night.